Hello and welcome to RCM Online College, bringing you here good news about our auditing and assurance and advanced auditing and assurance classes. So have you been having difficulties in having to understand auditing and assurance? We welcome you to our classes and everything will become simple. Auditing and assurance, or basically having to carry out an audit, it is a simple process. You just have to understand what happens in 4 key stages. Number one, there's what we call client acceptance procedures. Number two, there's planning and risk assessment of the client operations. Then after that, number three, you'll have to gather the audit evidence. After you gather the audit evidence, number four, finally what happens, you do an audit work review and prepare an audit report. So if you understand amongst those 4 stages what happens, auditing and assurance becomes very easy and actually very simple. For example, under acceptance of the client, there is the aspect of process of having to accept the work and sign the letter of engagement. Just understand ideally what happens around that particular area and all becomes simple and easy. When you talk about planning and risk assessment, how do you plan for the audit? Are you ready for the audit? Do you understand the kind of risks the client is having to face concerning, for example, his internal processes? So we are talking about here the audit risk and the business risks that the client is having to suffer or is actually basically having to face. These ones can be able to tell you or give you the potential that in this case probably there could be a risk of material misstatement in the final statements having to be prepared by the client, like the balance sheet or maybe the income statement. Number three, when you talk about, for example, having to gather audit evidence, you must be able to know the procedures or techniques you can be able to use to gather the audit evidence. When you are gathering audit evidence, there's something that is actually of so much importance. You also understand what we mean by audit assertions. They basically give you guidance or procedures as to how you can approach different items in the balance sheet or maybe items in the income statement as to how you'll be able to carry out an audit on them. For example, in this case, you check on the accuracy, you check, for example, on the valuation, you check, for example, on the rights and actually obligations pertaining to maybe assets or liabilities, amongst others. So once you've been able to gather audit evidence, number four, finally, you are saying you prepare the audit report. But for in this case, you prepare an audit report, you have to do a kind of like a review of your work. You review on the quality of the kind of work you've been able to undertake. But in this case, for example, simply involving an external party from your audit firm to carry out a review on your work, or alternatively, you look for maybe in this case a fellow partner within the audit firm to carry out a review on your work. With this one, you likely enhance quality in your work and reduce on the chances of what we call an audit liability. So ideally in the audit report, you have to know, for example, what are the contents of an audit report. But of so much importance in this audit report, you're having to express an audit opinion. So there are two kinds of audit opinions that you're likely to express. Major audit opinions, that is a modified one or an unmodified one. So you have to understand, for example, when you talk about modified, how do you modify? You can modify either as an adverse, as an accept for opinion, or maybe in this case, a disclaimer of opinion. Then finally, you can give a good report that is actually maybe unmodified or audit opinion. So once you understand those 4 key stages, what actually basically happens there, auditing and assurance basically is normally becomes a bit easy, and you just understand it as a process, as a simple process that you must be able to comprehend and know what actually happens at each and every stage. So I welcome all of you by simply having to be able to reach out to us through our customer care numbers. Thank you very much and karibuni sana.